Hello and welcome to a premium deck profile. Today I want to talk about my favorite clan in all of Vanguard, Oracle Think Tank. This is the first clan I ever built a deck for back when set 1 came out, and it was the first premium deck I built when I returned to the game after a long break. So this deck is very close to me, and I really like it. I think it's got one of the most interesting card pools to play around with and build. And it has a very devastating combo win con, although one that is negated entirely by some new cards that have come out. So without any further ado, let's get into talking about the deck. This is a deck based around two main things. One is manipulating the top few cards of your deck, and the other is devastating guard restrict. The goal of Oracle Think Tank is to use one of our grade 3s in combination with Stillwater Festival Deity Ichikishima in order to set up a no-guard scenario. This card restricts the opponent from guarding with G-Guardians and grade 0s from hand, and we have another card that says they can only guard with grade 0s from hand. That means that they legally can't call anything from hand. So they're forced to find other ways to guard, like Elementary Sanctitude, which is the main weakness of this deck, but also some decks can guard from zones other than hand. Without using a G-Guardian, like, say, Gurgwit from Gold Paladins. We can call perfect guards off the top of deck. Anyone with superior intercepts that also have a perfect guard effect, or play the hostage build from standard splashed into premium to call perfect guards in their drop and then use those as intercepts, sort of. Those decks can all end our combo for free. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to find ways to play around that, or you're just going to have to accept that those matchups are unwinnable. So let's get into the actual cards in the list. Beginning with our grade 0 starter, Godhawk Ichibiyoshi. This is the starter we must play if you're playing this grade 1 lineup. If you change the grade 1s, you can play a different starter as long as it's V-era and everything's fine. But this card has a very important name. So it's a typical V starter aside from that, and we're not really attached to it except for the grade 1 lineup, which I'll get to when we get to that part of the deck. Next, we have our main ride target. This is 4 copies of Supreme Heavenly Battle Deity Susanoo. Susanoo is a pretty bad Vanguard, but he does go into Auspicious Beast Kirin, which is our History Collection Superior Stride, which lets us stride going first on turn 3. Aside from that, he has one useful ability, which is that when you stride over him, you can counterblast and look at the top 2 cards of the deck and put one in hand and the other on the bottom. This will give you some card selection and help you find combo pieces or just help you plus a card. His GB2 effect is useless because we'll never not be on a stride. Next, we have 1 copy of Battle Sister Fromage. This is another ride target, and it has very useful on place. You get to counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and draw a card. And if you have a Battle Sister Vanguard, which you would ride her, and thus you would, you get to draw another card. So it's a counterblast 1, soul blast 1 for draw 2, which is really good, and it generates a protect, making it good either when you're pivoting to having to play a longer game because your combo's not ready, or when you just want to dig for combo pieces and go for it this turn. It also has a useful axe skill on V in the event that you have to ride this on turn 3 going first. You can discard a card to look at the same number of cards on the top of your deck as the number of your Battle Sisters, and then put each card you looked at on the top or bottom. Normally, if you were playing more Battle Sisters, you could potentially look at the top 6, but because we are just playing this one, it's currently just scrying 1 card, essentially. But a lot of the Battle Sisters are pretty good. And so if you ever experiment with this list, you could consider running some of them, especially the Battle Sister crits, which give you counter charge, and they go back into the deck on their own. So next, we have 4 copies of Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu. This is a very important enabler for our combo kill turn. What this card does is when it's revealed from deck by a card effect, you bind the top card of your deck and choose one of your Vanguards that gets 10k in a crit until end of turn. And that means that we can pretty easily stack lots of power and crit on our Vanguard, which when coupled with Guard Restrict makes a very devastating turn. On top of that, if we reveal one of these early to various effects, we can get the 10k in crit in the early game and rush the opponent down a little, forcing them to take more damage than they want. And getting your opponent up to like the 3 or 4 damage range by turn 4 is really useful, and it's hard for us to do because our numbers are bad. And then it has an auto skill. When it attacks on V or R, you discard a card from hand and look at 3 cards on the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 normal unit from among them, and put it in your hand, and then put the rest on the top of your deck in any order. This is important because we can check for triggers and stack them on the top of the deck and get rid of a non-trigger and hopefully hit a 3rd trigger. Next, we have 2 copies of Brilliant Witch Popo. This is our main closer. It has the effect that when it attacks, if your deck has 10 or less cards, until end of that battle, this unit gets 10k, and your opponent can only call grade 0s. So this, when combined with our Ichikishima, makes a no-guard scenario, and we want to stack all our crits on this and swing for lethal. Next, we have the most important card in the deck besides Popo, and that is Magical Calico. This has, it's a foreigner starter, but we're never going to start this. But it has GB1 Oracle, which means you need 5 cards in hand to activate. You put this into Soul and choose a card from your hand and discard it for the cost, and then you search up to 3 cards from your deck and reveal them, and your opponent chooses 2 cards from among them to put in the drop, and you get the last card in a hand. So the main use of this is to reveal 3 copies of Amaterasu, which will then proc Amaterasu 3 times, and you'll bind the top 3 cards of your deck, give 30k and 3 crit to your Vanguard, which is going to create a very threatening Vanguard. In fact, that's one of the ways that we win through Elementaria, is if our opponent doesn't have a Protect marker or grade 1 Perfect Guard in their hand, then stacking 3 crit and 30k on this with no G Guardians and no grade 0s means we can usually force through lethal on this. And if they somehow Elementaria this because it's the lowest crit attack, then we can stack 3 crits on a Popo and kill them anyways, and they've used their 1 Elementaria for the game. On top of the ability to set up the win con, it also allows us to search for anything we want in the deck. And we play a bunch of recursion pieces in order to pair with the fact that this card puts 2 of the cards we searched into the drop zone. So our opponent's going to give us the worst card out of the pile. And the better the opponent, the more likely it is that they give us the worst card. Some bad players won't understand what you're trying to do, and they'll give you a good card by accident. But don't lean on that. So this card combined with recursion means you can essentially search anything you want anytime you want, while also taking 2 normal units out of the deck to increase your trigger density. Using Calico multiple times in a turn will basically get you to the point that your deck's like all triggers, and thus is also less than 10 or less cards, which means that Popo will be lethal. This card is the hardest card to play in the deck, and also one of the most powerful. If they ever wanted to ban cards from Oracle Think Tank to make it less powerful, this would be a very strong candidate to ban, along with Ichikishima. So that's always lurking its rearing its ugly head in the background. But practice this card a lot. Play, in Magic we would call it goldfishing, but some people will call it shadowboxing. You're going to play solo games with this card a lot to see all the different combo lines you can take, and that's going to be an important skill for mastering this deck. Next we get to our grade 2s. And like all these grade 2s are going to be some kind of utility for the combo, starting with 3 copies of Knight of Excision Diaruing. This is a card from Standard, and on place on R, if your Vanguard is only 1 clan, which it usually should because we're Oracle Think Tank, Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from your hand, and choose a heart card, or not a heart card, choose a card with the same clan as your Vanguard, and then pick it up from your drop and put it into your hand. So this card will essentially let us get anything. When combined with Calico, we can either get one of the cards that Calico had to discard, or we can Soul Blast the Calico out and use it again. So this gives us a lot of combo potential. It also can just help as it's a 10k grade 2, so sometimes it will just be a beat stick in the early rush game. Next we have 1 copy of Miko of the Round Moon Fuyo. When this card's placed on V or R, you counterblast 1 and draw a card, and you choose a normal unit from your drop and put it on the top of your deck. And if your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, you can put it into Soul instead. So this has a bunch of uses. 1, we can just use it for rock card draw, which is nice. 2, we can use it to stack Amaterasus onto the top of deck in order to reveal them to another effect, which is very powerful. Or if we want the card in our hand, we can stack it to top of deck and then play something else that draws a card to get it straight to our hand. And to facilitate that, we have 1 copy of Diviner Kuroi Kazuchi. This has act on V or R once per turn, Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from hand to reveal the top card of the deck and put it into your hand and activate all the trigger effects of the revealed card. If you revealed a normal unit, this unit gets plus 6k. So this can reveal Amaterasu from the top deck to give a 10k and a crit to the Vanguard in the early game, or on the combo kill turn. And it can combo with all of our with this effect to get whatever card we put to top of deck. And this has an interesting interaction with the over trigger, where you will reveal the over trigger and put it in your hand and then activate its trigger effect. So you will get 100 million and the over trigger won't get removed. So you'll have it in your hand still, which lets you set it up with one of our strides, Waka Hirume, which lets you put a card from your hand on top of the deck when it attacks. So this lets you set up to get the 100 million from the over trigger twice in one game, which is a pretty powerful effect and gives you an alternate thing to do when you're not ready to combo kill your opponent. but you need to pressure them to try to push them up damage so that you can combo kill them later. Next, we have 2 copies of Valtrosa and Liel. This is the Dual Nation Keter plus Brandgate card from Standard. What this card does is when it's placed on R from hand, other than during the battle phase, choose up to 1 normal unit without Sentinel or up to 1 order card from your drop and put it on the bottom of the deck. And then you counterblast 1 and look at the top 5 cards of the deck and choose up to 1 card from among them and reveal it and perform one of the following. If it's an order without Regallus piece, you put it in a hand and shuffle the deck. And if it's a card with grade less than or equal to the opponent's grade, call it to R. So you can use this to build a board, and you can use this to get back orders. But the main use of this for us is to put back Amaterasu into the bottom of the deck. So if we accidentally draw Amaterasu early, we can do something like discard it to Stride and play Valtrosa and Liel and get it into deck so we can search for it with Calico later. And by putting it at the bottom of the deck, we're very unlikely to accidentally draw it again. So that's our main use for it, but its ability to also call a potential booster or another attacker in the grade 2 rush game is also quite valuable. Next, we have 1 copy of Azure Sky, White Scale, Aspronia, and Saphira. This has the effect that when it's placed on R from hand, other than during the battle phase, you can look at the top card of the deck and put it on the top of the deck or discard it. And then you can counterblast 1 and perform one of the following. You can choose a normal order from your drop and put it in a hand, or you can choose a grade 2 or greater card from your drop and call it to R. This is an important recursion piece because it can get back our Brilliant Witch Popo in order to set up our Guard Restrict combo. It can help us hit triggers when we're done searching for pieces and we're ready to just kill the opponent. We want to use as many effects that manipulate the top of the deck as possible in order to set up as many crits on the top of the deck as possible. And this is just another card to get us there. And this card can pick up Bracing Angel Ladder from the drop, and there are a few decks that can interact with your board in the battle phase without using a G-Guardian. So you're going to want Bracing Angel Ladder to stop those specific decks. Then we get to our grade 1s. We have 4 copies of Miko of the Mirror Moon Sei in order to go with 1 copy of Goddess of the Crescent Moon Tsukiyomi. And when this card is placed on V, it searches for the Tsukiyomi and you write it as standing. So that's why we only play 1 of this. Then it has another effect that on R, as an axe skill, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 2 or greater, you put a grade 2 or less rearguard into Soul and you look at 2 cards on the top of the deck and choose up to 2 cards among them to put on the top or bottom, or to put on the top, and then you put the rest on the bottom. So this is essentially a Scry 2, which is very useful when you're trying to set up a triple crit turn at the end of the game. And we play a bunch of these utility cards, so our board's just going to be flooded with cards like Fuyo, with Aspronia Saphira, with Dio Ruings that aren't really going to be very impressive as attackers, and we don't really care about them, so we can just put them into Soul in order to scry the top of deck. And then we have Tsukiyomi. We're just playing this for the check top 5 effect because we don't have any other Tsukiyomis in the deck. But at the beginning of Ride Phase, if you have Godhog Ichibiyoshi, the starter, you can look at 5 cards on the top of your deck and put 1 into hand and put the rest on the bottom. And then if you did, you discard a card. This card will basically just help you find combo pieces. It'll help you get something useful into your hand, or it'll help you avoid breaking on Ride Up. And it can discard something to set up for later with some of the recursion, which is always nice. And also just doing the combo of writing the other grade 1 to search for this one is going to take 2 cards out of your deck. And then a 3rd card with this effect, which is going to help you get to that all-important 10 cards in deck or less. Then we have our other main grade 1 ride target. This is 4 copies of Divine Sword Ame no Murakumo. When this is placed on V or R from hand, you look at the top 5 for a grade 3, reveal it and put it in your hand, and then shuffle your deck, and then if you did, you discard a card. So this card is very important for 2 reasons. 1, it helps us find Stride Fodder and Popo, and also finds Susanoo to ride up, but it also counts as a reveal for Amaterasu. So in the early rush, say you're going 2nd and you're attacking on turn 1 with your grade 1, or you're on turn 2 and you're trying to attack with like grade 2s boosted with grade 1s to force through damage, this card will find an Amaterasu, reveal it, you can just discard it for the effect, and then you'll get 10k and a crit to your Vanguard after binding the top card of your deck. So this will give you a lot of pressure early, because you'll turn all your 5k or 15k guard attacks into like 20 or 25k guard attacks or bigger. So it's a very, very good card for early rush. It's also a 13k base 1, or 13k grade 1, so that means that we can just use it as an attacker on its own too. Next, we have 1 copy of Tetramagus. When this is placed on R, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1, draw a card, and reveal a crit from your hand and put it on the top of deck. This is just here to stack a crit when we know there's a non-crit on top that we can draw or that we want. And it synergizes with Fuyo for the cost of a counterblast. But getting more crits into the deck is critical. See what I did there? Then we have 1 copy of Elementaria. It's the best perfect card in the game. It's a Blitz Order PG that's free if your opponent has triple drive. So it's usually free in premium because everybody strides. Then we have 1 copy of Bracing Angel Ladder. This goes to Soul and draws a card, and your Vanguard gets 5k, and then until your next turn, all your rear guards cannot be chosen and cannot be put into any zone other than R by your opponent's card effects. So this is just the ultimate protection effect. It basically makes it nearly impossible for your opponent to interact with your board at all, though they can still attack your units. But if you have a Dismal in your G zone, you can also negate that even. So this is just really good, and we're here because there's like a couple decks that can call stuff to interact with our board that isn't G-Guard reliant. Like, consider like Genesis Clans with Veratrum. You could Veratrum on the Vanguard swing or on another rearguard swing, and then you could make me call over the Popo. And that would basically just shut down my whole kill turn, unless I had 2 of them, in which case you could play 2 interactive cards. Mega Colony used to be a big concern because they had Brilliant Blister, but Mega Colony is going to see a lot less play. But if you do encounter the random Mega Colony player in the wild, Bracing Angel Ladder will stop them from Brilliant Blistering your Popo. Then we have our triggers, 4 grade 3 heals. These have a useful anti-aggro effect where you can, if you're not on grade 3 yet, you can give your Vanguard 10k or give the attacker -2 crit, which is a very solid way to stay alive, especially against things like Kagero. On top of that, they can self-damage you if your opponent's been hard damage denying you the whole game. They give you 1 damage if you have nothing in your damage zone. And they pitch for Stride as a grade 3, so they're overall pretty useful, and OTT doesn't really have resource issues, so we don't need to play any of the countercharge soul charge heals. So we'd rather just have more Stride fodder. We also used to be able to play Reverence Rush, which would let us stack heals, but instead and we still do have a way to stack heals available to this clan. We have a grade 1 that's like Soul Blast 1, check the top 5 and put a grade 3 from among them on top of the deck, and we can use that to stack a heal if necessary. But that goes for a much grindier, stally game plan than this deck has, which is a viable plan for this deck. I would recommend cutting the Sais, and the Tsukiyomi for like grade 1 perfect cards and Hanali's, and then that would give you a lot of potential to draw the game out, which would help make up for the weakness of not being able to go for the combo kill right away if the opponent's at 0 or 1 damage. And so that's like another way to play the deck. I think the European Cardify Vanguard player named Maxime, but not Solemn, the other guy, on Twitter, he's posted a couple lists like that shouldn't really have changed because no new cards for Oracle Think Tank have come out really since then. You could look at that guy's list and get a good idea of what a deck without being all in on the combo might look like. And it is a viable way to play this deck. I think this is a bit more high rolly, but has the better potential for an unbeatable kill condition. Then we get to our crits. We're going to play 4 of the Stride crit, Celeste Witch Toto. These just pitches a grade 3 for Stride, and they're 10k power, 15k shield. Then we have 4 copies of Divine Sword Kusanagi, but we're playing a split of the V-era Crit Sentinel, which has 30k shield and counts as a Sentinel, and the G version, which has been errated to be the History Collection draw crit. So if you hit these as damage triggers, you get to draw a card, and their power's been updated. We're playing these because we don't want to play draw trigger PGs, and we don't want to play perfect cards in the main, in this list at least. So by playing these, we have more crits in our deck, but also still have Sentinels. And we're a Protect clan, so at the end of the day, getting a 30k shield trigger is not that big a deal because we still have access to perfect cards even without our Sentinels in the trigger zone or in the trigger part of the deck. And then this can also go to Soul and draw a card when you attack with a Susanoo. So this can give us some digging potential when we don't have all the combo pieces. Then we have 3 copies of Psychic Bird. This is a classic Oracle Think Tank critical trigger. It has the effect that if you have an Oracle Think Tank Vanguard, you can put it into Soul and draw a card. And it also says up to 1 card. So if you are going to deck out, but you need Soul for some reason, you can do that, which is very funny. But this card basically is just a way to get cards we've stacked to the top into our deck, or a way to turn low power and shield crit triggers into hopefully better cards when we desperately need a piece of some kind. Then we have our Overtrigger Spiritual King of Ignition Valnote. This is the red OT, you might hear it called. This is the effect that when you drive check it, you choose a standing rearguard, and it gets red text once per turn. At the end of the battle, this unit stands, or at the end of the battle, this unit attacked, you can stand it. And then if you didn't choose a card, you get to draw a card and choose a 1-unit card from your hand and call it to R. And then you still get the extra attack, which is nice, but you won't get... you won't have like the double attack with 100 million, which is what you actually wanted. So this is one way for us to beat Elementaria. If we can stack this on top of the deck with our top of deck manipulation, and then we go into Popo, we can drive check the 100 million trigger, put it on Popo, and then get 2 attacks with it. And if we also have enough crit to make the attack lethal, then our opponent is forced to have Elementaria twice in a row, which they usually can't do. So this card will get the job done in those scenarios, and thus it's the Overtrigger of choice for us. It is, however, not very good to stack with Wakahirume unless you have, unless you also hit some crits, in which case you get to threaten with 100 million with crit attack twice, but you won't have the same kind of guard restrict on Wakahirume as you would with Ichikishima. So that's our main deck. Let's get into our G-Zone, starting with 2 copies of Soaring Auspicious Beast Kirin. This is the History Collection Stride. You can go into these as a main phase act skill on grade 3 if you have Susanoo as your Vanguard and you have no Imaginary Gift, and you get 2 protects and you flip up another copy. His on-hit always activates, and when this guy hits a Vanguard, you look at the top 2 cards of the deck and you choose a card from among them, reveal it, or no, choose a card from among the top 2, put it in hand, put the other on the bottom. Sorry, got a little mixed up there. That's just basically where you're there to get to GB3 on turn 1, or on turn 3 guaranteed every time. Our main win condition, and the only stride we really care about, is 4 copies of Stillwater Festival Deity Ichikishima. So this card has the effect that you can flip another copy of itself and counterblast 1, soul blast 1 to draw 2. And then it has, at GB3, on Vanguard Circle, act once per turn, choose a face-down card for the G-Zone and flip it, and during this turn, your opponent cannot call G Guardians and grade 0 cards from hand to Guardian, which is a very, very good guard restrict effect. It's going to take away most decks' defensive options almost entirely. No triggers to guard with, except grade 3 heals, no G Guardians, no draw trigger perfect guards. Most decks will simply just die to this, especially if they're not Protect clans. It's very strong, and then this combined with Amaterasu, getting 30k and 3 crit on it, will just be very hard for the opponent to survive in theory. The main way to defend against Oracle Think Tank is to stay very low. Next up, we have 1 copy of Sterling Witch Momo. This is our Hail Mary backup win con. So what this does is on V, once per turn when it attacks, you can counterblast 1 and turn a card from the G-Zone face up and discard up to 3 cards from hand. And for each card discarded, 3 of your front row units get 10k, so it'll be 30k. And until end of turn, if you discarded 3 cards, at the end of the battle, stand this unit, and it gets drive -2. So it's a restanding Vanguard that we hopefully can put 3 Amaterasu effects on. So it'll be a plus 30k, plus 3 crit Vanguard attacking for usually 56 total with 3 crit and triple drive into single drive. That can actually, if the opponent doesn't have double perfect guard, they might just die to that. And then if they do guard it, you can put the triggers, because your Vanguard already has 3 crit, and you can put all the triggers on your rear guards, and those also have plus 30, and you can swing with those and hopefully force through damage. So overall, it's pretty strong. Occasionally, your opponent's just going to get caught without a perfect guard in their hand, and you're going to go into this and they're going to die, which is very funny. But that's what it's for. If you have to go second and you don't think you're going to survive to your Ichikishima, instead of going into our other stride, you can go into this as your first stride and just try to see if you can kill the opponent. If they have a small hand, you might get away with it. Also, just sometimes you're not going to need to use Happiness Gathering Dragon King, and you'd rather just try to pressure the opponent as hard as possible to push their damage up. Then we have Happiness Gathering Dragon King. This used to be our best first stride. What this does is, as an act skill, once per turn, you can flip a card from the G-Zone and reveal cards on the top of your deck equal to the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone plus 2. Call all of the revealed normal units to R, and then put all of the revealed trigger units in your hand and shuffle the deck, and then you activate all the trigger effects. Notably, this can reveal Amaterasu's, but it's essentially a way to build a board from nothing and hopefully to get some extra pressure from hitting some crits. However, you can't really activate more than one of these a game or you'll deck out because they scale. So the first one will reveal 3 cards, and then the second one will reveal 4 cards at least, assuming you didn't G-guard with... Actually, it'll be 5 cards at least, because you'll flip up another copy of a card from the G-Zone. And that means that you are basically going to reveal so many cards that you're going to endanger your ability to win through deck out. Next up, we have Wakahirame, which I've talked about already. It has an auto skill when it attacks, counterblast 1, soul blast 1. Choose a face down card with the same name and flip it, and then draw a card and put a card from hand on top of the deck. So you're going to stack the Overtrigger with this. That's all it's for. It's not that great, but it's a decent backup plan. Then we have our G-Zone, which I'll lay out all at once. So our most important G-Guard is probably Goddess of the Son of Eternity, Amaterasu. This card has the effect when it's placed on G. If the number of cards in your hand is 4 or more, this unit gets plus 10k. And then when it's placed on G, Soul Blast 1, or Soul Charge 1, sorry, and look at the top card of the deck and put it on top or on the bottom. So this is basically just a check for triggers G-Guardian. If you want to guard an attack early, but then you want to be able to hit a defensive for a future attack, this card will probably guard the low early swing and then set up to hit a defensive later, or at least give you another shot at fishing for a defensive. It also plays very nicely with this card, Octadic Reinforcer Octagonal Magus. When this card is put on G, counterblast 1, and choose 2 grades from 0 to 3 and declare them, and reveal the top card of your deck. If the revealed card is one of the 2 declared grades, put that card in hand, and if you put a card into your hand, this unit gets plus 15k shield until end of battle. So it'll be a 30k shield, and it'll draw you a card for CB1. Pretty good. And we have ways to manipulate the top of our deck, either with Amaterasu or with other effects, and that will give us a pretty consistent ability to surprisingly get a lot of defense. Because this reveals a card, if we know a Amaterasu is on top, we can use this, and we can hit that Amaterasu as the revealed card, draw it, and then bind the top card and get 10k, which is kind of like hitting a defensive effect mid-battle. Overall, pretty good, and in the event that you don't know what the top card of deck is, you can name 1s and 2s, usually pretty safely. You'll get one of those, and then if you don't get one, that means it's either a trigger or a calico, or it's a grade 3 important card or a heal trigger. So there's a good chance that even if you whiff, you're at least leaving a trigger on top of the deck, and then you can probably just commit a little bit more shield from hand to guard the attack. So it's not the worst thing in the end of the day if you whiff on this, because you're most likely to whiff on something that you want to hit and damage anyways. Next we have Excite Battle Sister Bavaroy. This has auto counterblast 1 when it's put on G, pay the cost. If you do, draw a card, reveal the top card of your deck, and if the revealed card is grade 1 or greater, this unit gets 5k until end of that battle, and you may put the revealed card on the bottom of your deck. So this can reveal Amaterasu, which is nice when you are trying to draw a card that you know is not Amaterasu, but then you want to have a chance at revealing an Amaterasu. But also, if you want to draw a card but not let your opponent know what it was, you can go into Bavaroy if you know it's on top of your deck. It's just overall pretty solid. It's also sometimes better to go into when you don't know the top card of the deck at all, because you can go into this first to block a small attack, and then you can use a Octagonal Magus afterwards to get a big shield and a card draw, now that you know what the top card is. But likewise, also, if you get something that you don't want to show the opponent, or if you see something like a trigger you want to go for on the kill, like the Overtrigger, and you're comfortably going to survive the turn without the Overtrigger, you can put it on the bottom of the deck and save it for your combo kill turn by stacking it to the top with other cards when you go for lethal. So this is our G-Zone. We have 1 copy of Harmonics Messiah, which is a staple. Every deck needs to play this. And as you can see, every card kind of supports that game plan of get to a scenario where we are striding each Kishima, and we have a Popo on rear, and we hit 3 crits and go for lethal. There's not really a attack pattern I need to show you here. Your board's always going to look a little different based on which utility cards you played. None of your rear guards have any battle phase skills really. It's just guard restrict, or they're essentially vanillas, with the exception of grade 3 Amaterasu, which will check the top 3. So this deck is less about attack patterns and such, and more about successful sequencing, which is something you just got to practice yourself. I can't possibly shuffle up this deck and show you every possible hand and every hand's possible route to the combo. You're just going to need to practice this deck a lot and get really comfortable with using Calico to find 3-step lines into getting your preferred win con. And that's really just on you. This deck is very fun to play if you like combo decks with that like that have endless numbers of routes to victory. You're also just going to lose some number of games to Elementaria, or your opponent having or hitting the overtrigger, or them healing out of lethal after they guarded everything to stay low the whole game. And that's just one of the difficulties of playing this deck. This deck is not the best deck in the format. It's not tier 1. It is a difficult to play combo deck that has some critical weaknesses, but also has a very hard to deal with win condition, and plays a lot of very interesting effects, and has a lot of defensive potential. So if that sounds appealing to you, I definitely recommend picking this deck up. I don't think it's too expensive except for the Dual Nation cards. Those are quite pricey. Last time I checked, I don't know what they're at now. But you don't need to play those. This deck is very, very highly customizable. I'm going to pull out some cards here and just show you some of the possible options you could be playing instead of these. You could be playing cards like this, which will let you draw 3 cards and discard 3 cards at end of turn to dig for combo stuff. You could be playing normal unit PGs. You could be playing Alliance Angel to get G Guardians and such. These normal unit PGs have recycling effects. You could be playing more Popos in order to go into a Battle Sisters hybrid. And to go with that, you could play these Battle Sister crits, which will give you countercharge and the ability to shuffle your crits back into deck. You could be playing Silent Tom for a completely different win con, which has no normal units to guard with from hand, which means it specifically only beats decks with grade 1 PGs. But you could pivot into this if you know and you could play 1 copy of this and pivot into it over the Popo if you think your opponent's playing a deck with all normal unit PGs, like some Grand Blue builds and stuff. What else do we got here? The Battle Sister lineup of this deck, it creates its own entirely different archetype too. You can play this card, Nico Velgen's Fumino, that says on V or R on play, Soul Blast 1, look at the top 5 cards of the deck and reveal a grade 3 from among them and put it on top, which means you can stack the grade 3 heals, and then you shuffle the rest and put them on the bottom, and this unit gets 2k. That gives you a very different approach to setting up grindy defensive games instead of all-in combo games. But if you wanted to go even more all-in on the combo, you could play Goddess of Running Water Ichikishima and get a card that gives you 10k when you reveal it from top of deck, making it even harder to deal with everything. So there's a lot of different things you can put in the slots of this deck. You can play more copies of the other grade 2s as well, of Fuyo and Korikazuchi. And none of those would be worse, really, than this build. They would just give you different lines and different things you can do. So it's really which things do you value more, which ones do you want to do more. You could even play more Calicos to get even more deck thinning and get like a guaranteed 3 crits when you go for lethal. Those are just some of the options. You can also give up on Susanoo and go for a different grade 3 and choose to go second. Another thing you could do is you can play only 2 copies of Susanoo and then split it with your preferred grade 3 Vanguard in the clan. And then you can just search the Susanoos with the G version of Ame no Murakumo, which will give you a hard search effect. That's an option you can go into. So this is Oracle Think Tank. It's a very fun combo deck to play. And it's not doing something super annoying to play like infinite loop attacks or anything like that. It's a bit faster to execute than Fenrir because you aren't comboing your whole turn per se. You're just activating a bunch of Calicos to get the cards you need, which if you get fast, doesn't take that long. So it's a combo deck that can win through time pretty easily. It's also got tons of stall potential with some decent G Guardians and Protect markers, giving it a lot of survivability. There's a lot of pros to this deck. The cons are a bit of a problem, and it makes your matchups really polarizing. The decks that can hard search Elementaria, or the decks that can stay at 0, and the decks that can guard from zones other than from hand, those decks are really hard to deal with. And the good news is that Oracle Think Tank is probably just like 1 or 2 cards away from being overpowered. And when it is overpowered, though, it unfortunately is like a format ruining kind of overpowered because it just sets up an unguardable attack. But currently it's not at that stage. It's at a very fun to play stage that can just ambush people and kill them out of nowhere when they don't understand how this deck works. And it can sometimes steal wins even against very good players simply because they just don't have the cards in hand to beat it. So that's all for now. I hope you consider playing this deck and give it a shot. It's very much a deck that needs a specialist, though.